We just shot another podcast.
That's right, James.
Talked for an hour and 20 minutes. And it was so personal. Don't know when it's going to air. And now we're here to talk about movie news.
Hey.
Now.
Yeah. Now we're here to go surface level, baby.
Surface level, no more personal stuff. No, it's going to be very real.
Here.
And today, filling in, John Humphrey.
That's right.
What's up, buddy?
I have an immense urge to go make sure that I hit record on the Roadcaster, even though I know I did. That's how.
Do you want to double check John's usually doing the behind the scenes? It's just John and I in here today. Why don't you go ahead and check? There, we good? Oh, look at that. We're rock solid steady. Well, dude.
So good.
We got a lot to talk about today.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for asking. We got a lot to talk about today.
I would like to get right to it.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, let's do it. The thing is, we have already warmed up on another
we
lovely
have
podcast.
Warmed up, incinerated ourselves.
Yeah.
And cooled down.
We took a nice cool dip in the blast furnace, and now we're back.
I'm like, oh yeah, let's film again. So here we are. But I'm excited because I love filming this, and I'm excited that we finally get to be across the desk from one another for this. It's only a matter of time.
There will be another me chiming in off camera too, though.
One of these days. So there was a couple of stories that for sure John and I wanted to talk about, that being like Mortal Kombat 2. Those images came out. The Saw franchise, which some of you guys might not know, this is a franchise very near and dear to the heart of John and Greg.
It is.
And how it looks like it's just over, which is surprising.
So strange.
And then did what we did last week, because I absolutely loved the way this turned out, which was we went to the community post and just wanted to see a little bit more generalization of what you guys want us to talk about. So chose like some of them are, similar comments, but nailed it down to 5 stories that I didn't know about till 10 minutes ago. I was like, oh, dang, there's some stuff I completely missed that are apparently big deals that are top rated. Like, please talk about this.
The Toxic Avenger, of course.
Toxic Avenger trailer, yeah. But yeah, man, there's so much in there that I was like, I haven't been so out of the loop on what Warner Brothers is doing. And like, holy shit, that's awful. And then, of course, Snow White and how that response has been going down.
Terrifically.
I've got thoughts on that for sure. And a lot of this is just going to be me seeming like I got thoughts and going to try my best. So what can I do in a moment like that?
So many thoughts, baby.
Explore dialogue, come from the heart, and just see what ultimately rises, what ultimately comes out, right? So yeah, with that in mind, you guys can go hop around if you like, or just listen from beginning to end. There are video chapters down below. I think we'll just do this pure John and Greg style, not worry about retention. Let's just go with what we want to start with. We have not talked about the Saw franchise. Have you looked up what's going on with this? I heard like just little rumblings about it that apparently the producers are at odds with each other.
Yeah.
And it's just led to like, I don't know, the franchise is just shut down now, which is shocking because that last one was so well received.
It was like the closest Saw has ever come to prestige.
It got great review.
Yeah.
I never thought I would ever say those words.
Yeah.
What was the 10th movie? 10th movie?
Saw 10.
It got the 10th movie in our horror franchise. Got incredible reviews.
You're usually lucky if part 6 is a surprise banger, which is true of
With
Saw.
This one, yeah.
But also part 10 being like maybe the best since part 1 is like so cosmically like lovely. It's good for them.
It's insane. And it did well.
It did.
So hear that it's 10, I'm like, what? It didn't make any sense to me. And there are people saying that it has to do with greed, ego, things like that. I am genuinely upset by this because they had this opportunity to do something new. And of course, people are like, well, Tobin Bell is kind of old now. I'm like, yeah, we know he's old.
Yeah, that's why you got to make as many as possible.
That's why you got to do it now.
So you can't.
That's why it's like Harrison Ford, keep acting, you know? To the day you die, just keep acting.
Hey, the people who don't retire tend to live longer. So,
what was your response when you first heard this news, man? Because I don't think this makes any sense. How do you guys in the comments feel about it? No one asked about it on our community post, which is kind of sad, but I would like to. I want to know, how do you feel?
It was interesting to discover because at first what I found it as was like, oh, Saw 11 might be canceled. And then that leads you, it's the logical conclusion, but then you dig deeper and you see the words put out there of like, and with that said, the franchise along with it. But yeah, looking at, I think it was Bloody Disgusting or whatever the original article was, it is a bit of hearsay certainly, but that is a movie that was pushed. I forgot that it was supposed to come out in 2024 and then it got pushed to this year, or it got pushed a year. It got pushed to supposed to be now later this year. Come to find, these conflicts are happening behind the scenes, as the article described it. I believe like 2 of the main producers couldn't come to a mutual decision on what approach to take for the next installment. And it's weird to have this news now, being such granular fans of the Saw franchise, because like in hindsight, judging by what we've gotten recently, I can kind of better, again, just in my own headcanon, see maybe what we're talking about when we think of what these conflicts could be. But it just generally is a bummer because, too, it brings you back to the idea of like, it doesn't sound like this is Lionsgate pulling their weight around or something like that. It's like you remember that Saw is mostly shepherded by a small group of people, and throughout its run, throughout the different phases, they still have had like a handful of people with James Wan and Lee Whannell were at least involved for like the first 3. And then you had Dunstan and Melton on the writing side for the next handful, and like a bunch of Darren Bousman's in there. And then you have, I think it's Oren Berg and Peter Koulis. I think there were 3 producers, and I think one of them passed, so I hope I'm not naming incorrectly. And I don't know if it's them even, but it seems like they are the 2 guys who, again, own and shepherd this. And it's weird to remember, like, oh, this is a very successful, like, little independent film franchise that's almost kind of family owned, plus the big studio distribution.
Yeah. I do feel like I get why the word greed is thrown around here, because it's like the thing finally does something in a way that is beyond well. It reaches like this new height. It breathes fresh life into the franchise, which means there can be some serious gains to come from this if continued in a way that is, successful.
Yeah,
and
fitting.
The fact that you can't come to some type of symbiosis on this is really, really sad, because it's robbing us, the audience, of something. The creatives, the people, not the producers, but I feel like just based off the news, a part of this conversation is like producers, financial producers versus, the creatives, like directors and such, directors and writers. And what they are doing what they have now done to the Saw franchise is kind of a pissy, selfish thing to me. And somebody's like, it's a weird thing. I am part of the problem in a way of like, I am jumping to like so many conclusions in my own head without knowing any of the real details.
And who the source is and how true any of this is.
But it lines up, considering that it's been delayed. We haven't heard anything about it. And when something does that well, especially in a horror realm, it's like, no, this should have been done by now. Like you would think it would be done by now. And I mean, there's really not a lot one can say other than this is disappointing. And I hope that if the rights do get sold or something, that they don't immediately just hop on rebooting it, because that's been part of the specialty of Saw, is that it's been this one consistent timeline.
Soap opera, procedural.
While some stuff might occasionally contradict some past movie or conflict with timeline, it's pretty solid overall, and it's better than like the X-Men franchise in terms of that continuity.
It's got a better sense of consistency than a lot of franchises. And there's a curveball in there or 2, and I think that's part of what I'm fascinated by, is I think, and any Saw experts out there who know better than me, please, by all means, I would love you in the comments to enlighten us further. But I feel like what I had heard at the time was that the John Kramer story that became Saw X10 X is always, man, I never know which one to go with. But I feel like they wanted to do that, and then Chris Rock popped up with the Spiral idea, and they were like, oh, no, wait, we got to do that because this is, I could see in a different way. I looked at that like, oh, fun creative opportunity. What an unlikely collab. But I can also see from a business perspective how someone might go, no, wait. Let's do this potentially marketable for various reasons thing rather than doing the John Kramer focused story. And the problem with the Saw 11 after that is I go, what do you want? Do you want to divert again? Because I can see how that might be the move. Or do you want to keep going with midquels? You know, because that could also be the move, but you can't exactly recreate what is special about Saw X in, it seems like a tough one to make a sequel to because it's a particularly interesting watermark in that it is like giving a victory lap in the flowers to its main figure and asset and a heavy creative force in the franchise too in Tobin Bell. But also after that, you can't just make Saw X again, you know, so it does seem like a conundrum.
But if there was a way to go out though, it would be Saw X. Like if it was to be a final, like number 10 is a good number. The fact that it's a great movie, you get like a heartfelt story of our main killer, you know, and that's like one of the unique things about the franchise is that you've been watching the John Kramer Chronicle and like the generations of John Kramer jigsaw killers, you know, like so it's I think it's thematically fits for an ending. It does. Numerically fits for an ending.
Nice and crisp.
Yeah, it does, but I think on the heels of when you were told that you're going to be getting like 2 more, man, something ugly went down. But hey,
I'm curious. I will say this: if they do reboot it, because the article says like, you know, what's likely, and it only stands to reason, like a reboot, it'll come back somehow, and in any other hands, it's more likely to be a reboot. And granted, this doesn't really solve the AIDS problem, but one thing that would get me excited on the heels of having just watched Jack Reacher, if you got Herzog to do a one-off Saw movie as Jigsaw, it's like about the only thing that could get me like further excited if it's not the continuation of this franchise. It's the horror franchise that there are other ones that have popped off in our lifetimes, but this is the one I feel like since part 2, since discovering it then, I've been here for all of, you know, and invested in. So
I agree, man. How do you guys feel about it? Do you even care? Do you not care? I feel like you should.
It's torture just thinking about more Saw movies.
It absolutely is. Well, if there's something that is getting a sequel, then we knew it was coming.
Coyote versus Acme.
Yeah, no, we will get to that. We will get to that. Mortal Kombat 2, because I feel like we have the community post, and I'm like, no, the community page has got that taken care of on the news. The Coyote versus Acme. But Mortal Kombat 2, there's some actual photos here.
Let's go.
That they have released, and of course, there's information as well about the Johnny Cage portrayal. So the big thing is like you have Shao Kahn, who's going to be the villain, and he looks like the Terminator, but with like a skeletal thing. Have you seen the photo of it?
I have seen the Shao Kahn.
It's creepy as hell.
Yeah, and with this like metallic skull helmety thingy, glowy eyes.
It's interesting because he looks like a skeleton, but then the guy playing him is like bigger than Alan Richardson. Like the dude is like a humongo, and that's cool for Shao Kahn to be done right. And then
as long as he's huge, I think.
You have Katana as well, with her actual katanas, the Katana fan, and you know, another image of Hiroki with Scorpion. Looks like he's in hell in this moment. Oh, that's so cool. Let's put that together right now. And of course, the Johnny, the Cage, played by the one and only, the very talented Karl Urban.
That's right.
Which was a bit of a controversial casting.
Aomer.
Because, it was a bit of a controversial casting because of the fact that he's older. Yeah, Johnny Cage is a youngin'. He's a young man usually.
He's cocky.
And I'm looking for like the lines that here's what they said about him. Ed Boon, the game co-creator, said, "You finally get to see Johnny Cage. He's a washed-up Hollywood guy thrown into this magical, ultra-violent thing. Carl's depiction is different from the games. He's adding his own flair, but it's fresh. It's a good talking point. His intro is ridiculously hilarious with some of the biggest laughs in the test screening. The director adds, he adds complexity. We didn't want Johnny to just be silly or disposable. He's more than comic relief." And so, basically he's like the new guy, cocky, X-star, funny, layered, not just a jokester. He's central to the story.
Yes, of course. He's the underdog in all of us.
There's mixed reactions to it, but I feel like this is great for Karl Urban because we know he can do it from just doing like movies like Dread and then, of course, his role in The Boys. But this would be so different because it sounds like a bit more self-deprecating. Yeah. It sounds more self-aware. And to be like the new lead fish out of water and get Johnny Cage back, I think is great. They're actually going to have the tournament this time.
Yeah, I heard that.
Because the Mortal Kombat movie, I mean, we reacted to it, was like an interesting experience because while it gives you some like visual moments and certain scenes where it's like, wow, it's really cool that they brought it to the big screen, certain fatalities and such. Yeah. I mean, they don't have a tournament. The fighting was great. Like, it's a mixed bag, right? There's some great things in it, and there's some like things that just really don't sing.
It's a strong effort for what it is, but there's clear ways it could be more of what people want it to be.
Exactly. In some ways, it was like a good pilot for what they could possibly do to make a great sequel. Yeah.
With a slightly crazier aesthetic, and then you get a franchise going, a series going.
Yeah. So I have a lot of faith that this will be good because more than likely going to get more money to make this happen. Karl Urban is an actor that I think does excite people because there's not really like Hiroyuki Sanada is definitely like a name now. And he's been like around for a very long time, but now more than ever since Shogun, he's more of a name. Yeah. And Karl Urban is just like, he's definitely like a bigger name to like throw into the mix, especially someone who's been part of geekdom for a while. You just brought up Lord of the Rings. Like, he's been part of geekdom for a very long time. I feel like this could actually be something really cool.
Yeah. Scourge.
And then funny, and Scourge. And that's true. And another, you really know the character names. Damn. And another thing is that you know what? I forgot. What were you going to say?
Well, I mean, I think it's one of those things where I am sure there's a reason that someone who's played every Mortal Kombat could give us almost like a Jack Reacher, you know? It's like that Tom Cruise portrayal, not bad, you know? And for what it is, it's got the isms, but it's also filtered through this other, you know, aesthetic that is Tom Cruise. And I feel like Karl Urban, by contrast, is the kind of guy who probably would like... I mean, yes, it sounds like they are teasing something that he's made his own a bit, but also, I mean, I feel like he's a guy with a clear wealth of experience that could easily inform a character like this, whether sincere or comedic. And there are takes in the games where he is older and washed up. So, like, I understand how in the booting of your franchise, people might be like, get a young guy who can do 100 of these. But also, A, Karl Urban seems pretty spry anyway. And B, I feel like, he's the right combination of likable for a franchise that is so enduring. And we've seen, like, every time they get a new boost in graphical power, Johnny Cage looks a little different. You know, like, I feel like he's got enough of the type of look and obviously the physicality and the acting chops to where he can be both funny and cool. And I feel like, you know, in a Mortal Kombat scenario, you probably are going to have some stuff where he is playing off of, his Hollywood experiences and being a little, you know, too cocky for his own ability, bringing some of that, you know, thick-headed comedic relief. And as long as, again, they're being honest in that, you know, he's going to be some kind of interesting eyeline or character and not just be comic relief. I think it's mostly that. As long as he holds his own and isn't just a joke, I feel like this is great. Like, to me, I'm very optimistic and excited about that.
I mean, you want to be able to root for the guy.
Yeah.
And look, as cool as like Louis Tan is in other
Cole Young,
in other things we've
Cole
seen him
Young.
in, like, there's been so many things I've seen him in that I'm like, this guy is really cool. The character just did not work. Unfortunately, it didn't work in Mortal Kombat 1, and it was a disappointment for a lot of people. And he was supposed to be the eye line. He was supposed to be the thing you root for, the heart and whatever.
You got to give him his own flavor of some variety.
It did not sing. I guess that's my word for the day.
In the writing, they just didn't give him much of a thing. They gave him a girlfriend and a kiddo, and we all relate to that.
Well, for this, I like the approach too of like, well, let's do the opposite. Let's make our new character, what sounds like will be the lead, older, and someone who like probably needs to stretch a little bit, like, you know, so you root for him in a different way versus like young Hollywood hotshot Johnny Cage, and now he's gonna get humble or learn about his heart or some shit. You know, like whatever that obvious arc is, let's get this other obvious arc. But in a way that was probably a little bit more relatable, a little bit more endearing.
You can get more heart out of that for sure.
Yeah, and then trying to recap, like he's washed up, his glory days are behind him. This is a chance for some type of self redemption, you know. So I think there's opportunity here for actual rich writing that requires a rich character, and doesn't need to be like that deep, but something that Karl Urban can bring like his own elevation to. And I feel like it's necessary for the Mortal Kombat franchise for it to continue on. Cool fatalities and fight scenes are just not going to be enough. You need to have a good lead character, and if you are able to do that with an actual established character, I feel like then you are really going to be honoring what people truly want in life from this adaptation.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it's a nice. It's any actor you bring in is going to suit the role, obviously, but I feel like there is something about, if you're making the movie and they've expressed a wish to bring some level of, fun and heart along with the bone crunching.
Oh, did they?
Oh, that's kind of what the quote you said alluded to, that he at least brings some kind of characterization and, he's not just a joke, right?
I trust you so much today that I'm like, I am so brain dead.
Words in your mouth. But I feel like going this way to me makes some sense because, I don't know, like if you're 22 and you conquer Mortal freaking Kombat, that's only going to make you more insufferable. Especially if you're already like a cocky, a guy in the limelight, So this I could see leading to a lot of potential for, underdog, heartstring pulling, but also, fish out of water humor. And also it's fun to watch a character who's oblivious quickly get hipped to a new reality or something like that. And I feel like, with a little bit more world weariness on the character, there's just like way more you can do with that. And if you are tweaking the levels and we aren't going to have a Cole Young here, is he even in the movie?
Who cares? He's filming in that Roxy movie.
I hope that shouts out to Roxy and Kate Beckinsale and Luz Tan. I hope they find a way to keep him in the ensemble that is cool. But Johnny Cage is a character everybody wants to see, and I feel like everyone will want to attach to him. And I feel like if he is just a young, cocky 20-something, that can be fun. But if they want him to be a central character that I'm going to get latched onto, and who would maybe help lead a couple more installments, because face it, Hiroyuki Sanada we love, but he's Scorpion, and that's a different vibe of character. It was not supposed to be the charismatic leading guy. And Mortal Kombat, obviously, supposed to be an ensemble. But I feel like Karl Urban, this just gives me lots of optimism because he seems like he can bring the camp, the sneaky little heart that'll make things actually, relatable, and the physicality. It's all that.
Well, the other aspect that dawned on me while we're talking about it is like Shao Kahn's in it. And he was the villain in Mortal Kombat Annihilation, the sequel to Mortal Kombat 90s movie. And
got to do the reaction.
Annihilation, I can recall as being the first movie as a kid I watched in the theaters that I walked out of, and it was the first movie I believe I ever said I did not like that movie. In terms of like a movie theater experience at like 6 or 7. 6 or 7 years old watching this movie being like, I didn't like that. And it is a movie that does not get better. Like it is a terrible film. It's a really, really awful film. And disappointing for Johnny Cage is in it for like 2 minutes. And
that's what we want.
And so I'm wondering if they might and Katana is she's in first Mortal Kombat, but there's aspects of this that seems like it kind of feels like they're like doing some type of redemption to the sequel that we should have gotten with Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
Sure.
From bringing Shao Kahn in and doing it more comic accurate.
Yeah.
And then, having Johnny Cage be like a main character in it instead of just 2 minutes. I mean, they might do some type of, for those who've seen Annihilation, I guess I will try not to spoil it, but like they might do a flipperoo for what they did with Johnny Cage and then do that with Cole Young instead in this one as a little meta commentary. And you talked a lot about heart, and I think that's the thing that audiences often forget about what they need with their movies, even in a gory fest action movie like Mortal Kombat, is heart for anything is kind of important. It's a very important piece. I wouldn't say the first one had heart. I would say the original 90s movie had heart. Like, there's definitely heart in that film, even though the action's not what you think about. You're not like the heart of the movie.
Well, the heart that is being ripped out of a chest and, like, you know, eaten and, you know, run over by a bus and shot with a machine gun. Like,
it tethers a movie together. That's, you need that emotional connectivity, because at the end of the day, it just feels like another disposable piece of entertainment. But if you want a franchise, you got to have that heart.
You need like a for lack of a better touchstone, there's, I feel like, a James Gunniness that you want in something like a Mortal Kombat, where, like, yeah, it should be wild and gory and a bit irreverent, but also, like, any movie that you're going to care about as a franchise over time has to have, like, some element of heart to
absolutely
the character. Yeah.
Michael.
What's
going on, buddy?
How you doing?
He's gonna leave. That'd be so funny.
Michael is grabbing pretzels for those of you listening along at home.
Want to come say hi?
Join us. Get these chips right on the mic. Oh, you got the good ones too. You got the sour cream and cheddar ones. Those are brought to you by no one who sponsors us.
Sorry, buddy. Sorry, buddy.
Why don't you just sit on the couch and just, like,
I'd be so
vibe?
Funny. I think it'd be funny if you just, like, walked around here and just sat.
I like it. It's a very chill. We're in the break room.
Thank you for letting us shoot at your office today, Michael.
Yeah, thank you, Michael.
Okay, so that's the Mortal Kombat 2 news. How do you guys feel? You excited about it? Huh?
Do you like Kitana's costume?
YouTube question?
Do you like the fans?
What else is here? Oh, wait. Let's go to the community post ones.
Let's do it.
I put WB hates Looney Tunes.
Oh, that surprised the heck out of me. I feel like when you're here, you should just bring us, like, one Star Wars related piece of knowledge every time. It'll be Michael's galactic Senate.
Sure.
But yes, Looney Tunes.
I would like to read this comment because it's our top comment on the community post.
Oh, goody.
Let's talk about how WB absolutely hates Looney Tunes. Isaac Slayton 7207. So here's what I gathered, because we're gonna lump in Coyote versus Acme and Looney Tunes in one go.
Hey.
So Coyote versus Acme, it was a live-action animated Looney Tunes film starring John Cena and Will Forte, completed 3 years ago, but shelved by WB for a $30 million tax write-off. Other studios tried buying it. WB.
David Zaslav. David Zaslav.
WB.
Comment hashtag David Zaslav if you made it to that point.
He
Zaslav!
pulled Jack Warner's desk out of storage and uses it on the Warner Brothers lot.
What?
What a jerk one.
But I'm so conflicted because, like,
what a bad person.
How could you do that and then also be selling the Looney Tunes?
Well,
it's like Disney being like, oh, we don't need Mickey and the guys anymore. We should just sell those.
Let's try to explain this for people who don't know, because I had to look it up myself. So I'm partially saying this to make sure I understand the story.
Yeah, please.
So they refused to sell as of March 2025. This independent distributor, this is the part I did not know, Ketchup Entertainment, and I love ketchup.
Mustard!
They're negotiating to buy the film for $50 million, potentially giving it a second chance at release. And of course, this entire situation has fueled criticism against WB in prioritizing short-term financial gains over preserving its iconic properties. Secondly, the other part of Looney Tunes situation. WB is intentionally trying to, like, get rid of Looney Tunes, apparently.
Bonkers. They took a bunch of it off of Max.
Exactly. They have removed all classic Looney Tunes shorts from Max, effectively pulling decades of animation history from their own platform. Meanwhile, did you guys know there was a Looney Tunes movie that came out?
Yep.
The day the Earth blew up, a Looney Tunes just came out.
Yeah.
It was initially scrapped by WB, but later picked up by a smaller distributor, Ketchup Entertainment. So yeah, like, the overall feeling is, I guess, the question of why, like, there's such a cultural impact Looney Tunes has. Like, I did not personally grow up on Looney Tunes. I do not really know Looney Tunes. I know Space Jam.
Hey.
Like, that's about the extent of my Looney
Brought
Tunes.
us all together.
But I would be naive to say, like, of course I'm not aware of, like, what's Looney Tunes. Like, it is
They're part of culture anyway.
Beyond just move. It's like Simpsons or something. It's like Scooby-Doo. Like
everybody knows what's up, Doc.
Everybody knows Looney Tunes. Everybody knows Looney Tunes. And they are such an image part as well. And it's weird for like in a time in studios where there's so much about like capitalize on nostalgia. They are trying to completely rid themselves of something super significant.
Yeah, of a part of their friggin' history, of animation and Warner's history.
So the interesting thing is that you have a scenario in which you have such a detailed, long-standing...
Yeah, get close to the angle there.
A detailed, long-standing... Hello there. Detailed, long-standing treasure trove of IP.
Oh.
Unfortunately, because it is such a large collection of original content, the estimated value of, and you have to imagine, most of these shows that are up there, nobody's going through every single day and binging through all of them. I mean, there's a couple folks, but not enough to where it's justifying the cost of maintaining it. And the challenge is that when Discovery acquired Warner, number one, that was a very opposite-ended type of acquisition. They didn't actually have the money required to move forward with the acquisition.
Oh, no.
So they had to borrow a lot of funds and created a massive tax challenge for themselves, where part of the initial approach for the first few years was getting really clever with write-offs. And that's exactly what they did in order to preserve the company. Unfortunately, it came at the expense of an extraordinary story like the Looney Tunes.
And Batgirl.
And Batgirl, yeah.
So they're selling the masters to make up for acquisition costs.
I think this is a massive... the day leadership forgets about it's... Like, if you want to talk about business customers, leadership, right?
Yeah.
This is an insult to your audience. This is an insult to your people.
Yeah.
What they're doing. Like, Batgirl is one thing I think people could move past because no one saw Batgirl. It was brand new adaptation. There was never a Batgirl live action movie. Looney Tunes is different. You are insulting people at this point.
Well, and it's it's like,
and I appreciate that, Michael, by the way.
Yeah, that was very enlightening.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're me for today's podcast, but with way greater historical and political acumen. It's like DC stuff. Yeah, Batgirl, for example. It's like we all, if you know movie business stuff, you know, like, oh man, DC, Warner Brothers, that's been a thing for a long time. But like the Looney Tunes are even more, ancient back in the fabric of the studio than that. Like the Animaniacs are literally the Yakko, Wacko, and Dot Warner. And it's, like that to me, it's weird. If they sold DC tomorrow, I'm like, I get it. It's a very valuable portfolio of IP, but like Warner Brothers selling the Looney Tunes feels like they're literally like pulling a big brick out of the foundation and going, this is valuable and God, we need the money. So just dump it. It feels very desperate.
Doesn't even feel like an illusion to try to make it seem like artists are at all have a say, that artists are in control whatsoever.
Yeah.
Michael?
David Zaslav was able to turn the Discovery Channel into a extraordinary content juggernaut. He took that mantle, and he used to get laughed at because Discovery, they're based in Washington, D.C. They weren't in L.A. or anything like that. He ends up figuring out, like the show, like the Civil War Gold, where they like search for gold.
Yeah.
My theory is that they actually found the gold, and he used that to put the down payment on Warner Brothers. This is a short-term plan.
It feels like
the plan is to survive an acquisition that should never happen. If I don't have the money to pay up front for something, I shouldn't be able to take a loan out.
Get Afterpay.
To acquire it. That's exactly, they
Klarna
use Klarna
that shit.
to frickin' purchase
4 payments of however many $1 billion.
So anyway, I don't think they're going to sell off the IP. I think that they're in a waiting game to try to get to a more balanced place. And once they do, I'm sure they're going to release all these movies. They'll make a whole big fanfare about it. But it really is a sign that art is dead. It's dead. And the only thing that can save it is by becoming a super sexy reject and subscribing to our Patreon, because we are the last. We are storming the Bastille
Looney Tunes
that
with
is
your
Warner
help.
Brothers. We're going to bring it back.
I love having you here. It's fun.
I like being here.
It's unpredictable. What he said, it seems I you know what, in light of what you just said, I can see how this report could basically be them weighing the option. What would it be worth? Were we to sell the rights to the characters, our entire catalog of Looney Tunes things? Someone will want that. It is very valuable. It feels like to consider it would be disrespectful, especially at this point when it's like you're only this week hearing like, oh man, they might be in major trouble after some of these big flops, you know, with like the
David
Joker.
Zaslav.
Yeah, Zaslav. With the Joker 2 of it all, and some of the other, you know, expensive non-performers that they've had lately.
I think it's the job of the leadership to elevate what you have. It's the job to highlight, not bury it, not put it in the shadows. I don't care what weird short-term game they're playing, or like when it comes to the business and all that stuff. I'm not going to try to like sound like I know everything of what I'm talking about. I'm
like
not Michael Tesla, you know. But I know, and I think we all know enough. We all have an inkling enough when you can suspect, you can tell that there's some nefarious shit going on here. And I don't want to be like the conspiracy theorist guy, but I don't really feel like it is that because it's really apparent when you just kind of look at it. Coyote versus Acme being shelved for write-off. What happened with this Looney Tunes movie that just came out, them removing Looney Tunes from Max. I think he is the leader of WB, unfortunately. He is the positional leader. He is not someone that people want to follow, though.
No.
And when you have a leader like that, your company's going to be in trouble. And I think this is a part of really ruining your company. Some people might be being like, no one cares about Looney Tunes anymore. It doesn't matter. If you don't care, if you're someone, I don't really care about Looney Tunes. I don't. But the handling of this, like, this is how you screw over to create. Like, you want to get creators to work with you again. You want to get directors. You want to get writers to work. This speaks to a bigger problem.
Yeah.
Nolan left Warner Brothers for the Max shit that went down, the HBO Max stuff. The shit they're pulling now, I don't think they would ever get Nolan back. With what they're doing now. I don't care how much money you throw. I mean, I could be wrong about that, but trust is so important. And this man seems like he has single-handedly damaged trust. And when you break trust, it's so much easier to lose trust than it is to gain trust.
Sure.
And especially after you leave people with feeling some semblance of betrayal. It speaks to like a bigger picture. This is the problem with studios not being run by people who love movies, by people who became producers to help bring movies to life.
Yeah.
They've turned it into corporations. Now it's like, of course it's a corporation, of course it's a business, but how this approach is going, I think it's ugly. This is coming from a person who doesn't really give a shit about Looney Tunes. I think it's incredibly ugly what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up on the Looney Tunes, so to me, that's stuff that does feel like history, and there's a preservational, archival thing that I'm like, oh, this doesn't. Archiving is important, and yes, it's not like a big lucrative thing to do, but like, you know, history is important, and like this stuff has grown and influenced so much over time. There ought to be, especially at the studio that helped to build all of this that you see before you. You know, like Warner Brothers is a huge part of the fabric of so much history and entertainment, and the Looney Tunes are also part of that fabric of the history of animation, entertainment in general. And it just, the way this is all shaken out feels like there's been a clip circulating of Seth Rogen talking about producers and how like there's a common misconception that people just care about money and they don't want to make good movies and they don't give a shit.
But that guy is not David Zaslav.
But it really does authentically feel, with everything you hear about this guy and the decisions you see him and you know whoever executes his decision make, it does feel like a dude who's mainly good at doing businessy stuff. Like I'm not an expert, so again, if you know better in the comments, please enlighten us. But his overhaul of Discovery surprise, it wasn't, from my understanding, about making more Discovery-like content that's like about the world and about biology and science. And like, you know, it became much more of like a reality TV machine. And yeah, it boosted the brand, which is, you know, that's always going to be a conundrum of like, what is this thing for? What is the spirit of the art or information entertainment that they're making? But also, I get that you need to have a profitable venture, and that's always going to be a conundrum, but also that doesn't speak to somebody who really understood what Discovery was there for, who made it a profitable thing doing what it's supposed to do. He just made it a network that has a bunch of other basic cable style reality stuff, and this feels like that. Somebody who doesn't really have the appreciation for the catalog or really the care to at least respect the legacy, the catalog. This all feels like, again, accounting stuff. Just like move this asset here because, you know, X amount of dollars this.
Yeah, exactly. No, everything nowadays with like these big studios feels like major corporations using everything seems like algorithm. Everything seems like AI number crunching in some capacity. And this is the ugly side of modern day capitalism, that where it's like the amount that you do for more profit comes at the behest of what happens to the people who work with you and your customers as well.
Yeah.
It's sad. I think it's really sad what's happening right now.
Yeah, like don't sell the walls of the ship to make the ship more profitable. If it's the ship of Theseus thing. It's like, if you're just going to strip all the parts that are your history and that make you what you are, like, you know, then nothing lasts and nothing matters.
Yeah, terrible leader. Terrible leader.
Not my favorite guy.
Not my favorite guy either. And he makes a lot of money, so good for him. As much as Warner is always like, oh, it's struggling, we need more profit, and the guy still makes like insane amounts of money.
He's doing great.
Doing amazing. As long as David's okay, everything's okay. Yeah, so that's my thoughts on it. That's John's thoughts and a little bit of Michael's thoughts. You can feel the disdain from Michael there. All right. Well, okay. We got 3 other things here.
Let's do it. Shotgun.
I would say let's talk. Well, I'm following the flow here. Snow White.
Woo!
Content Corsair says definitely Snow White. This movie seems to give every group a reason to hate it, left and right, critics and audiences. Yeah, but really quick, backtrack a second. What Ketchup Entertainment is doing. As much as we want to dog on them, mad respect to Ketchup Entertainment.
Yeah.
We didn't highlight that at all. If they are able to save Coyote versus Acme, incredible.
Very cool.
And if it happens to be a hit, even better.
Like I love the idea that somebody out there cares enough, and yeah, I've seen their name pop up a little here and there.
And if they could be that random studio, that's all they do. Is they just say, we're going to buy Mackerel now. All they do is just save movies.
Oh my God. They just have the ad campaigns are built in. We saved it. We saved it from Goliath.
And then every time it's like a terrible movie, and they're like, we are broke because these are bad movies. And that's why they were canned. Zaslav is right.
Well, and that's the other thing is then you have to go, man, I hope people show up and support. I hope people actually show up when the movie gets released.
Well, that's the bigger conundrum, right? I mean, there's another comment here. I wanted to move on to that one about Snow White, but let me find this other one.
It's a good tease.
It's, is it here?
It's definitely there.
Mickey, a Warner Brothers movie, Ice Cap Lord 710, Mickey 17 potentially losing $75 million in its theatrical run makes me really sad. Between this and Novocaine, I'm making an active effort to show up for the smaller films, and I think there's a conversation to be had about all the glooming over Marvel's slop taking over theatrical, when the reality is nobody's willing to watch anything else or put their money where their mouth is. It is a fair point, because Mickey 17 is like a gigantic budget of a movie. Like they took
what it is.
That's a real gamble that they did. You know, like they got a great director, won an Oscar. You got a stellar freaking cast, and based on a book, right? So there's like a lot in there. So yeah, I could see the reason to gamble. But it's a big gamble because it's not some pre-established franchise thingy-majig or even like a franchise novel. It's not adapting like Fourth Wing or Lord of the Rings or some shit.
It's
or
sold on the
Avatar.
talent involved rather than the thing itself.
Yeah. But then you got something from Paramount on the flip side, Novocaine, which, in my opinion, incredible marketing. I thought it was great marketing. I thought it would actually be a pretty reasonable hit. But there is something about it, even though I love the movie, there's something about watching it where the disillusionment of theaters and how streaming has diluted, because when you start doing gigantic movies bigger than Mickey 17, like an Electric State on your streaming service, you've trained and conditioned your audiences now to just, in some way, it just builds up over time that, do I really need to see this in the theaters? Do I really need to see? I could just wait. And Novocaine is one of those movies where it's like, I think it's great with a crowd because of the kind of action scenes there are and the comedy. But I agree, like there is a hypocrisy here with audiences, and present company included, that we will sometimes be a part of. Like, we can easily talk these talking points that I want to make sure I get his name right. Iced Cap Lord 710 is talking aboard about what he's talking about. Of course, we can echo these same points, but it is our due diligence. I'll say this though, in a weird way, because of what we do at Real Rejects. I was thinking about it in our other podcast. A lot of people now, especially in LA, they don't usually just buy movie tickets. A lot of people have like some type of membership thing where they pay like $20 a month, so that way they can go to the theaters like several times a month. We always buy the VOD. When we are watching a new release, we're always buying, unless it's already on a streaming service.
Yeah, unless it's already included. We're just renting it on Prime or something.
So I'm like, we are still contributing money.
Yeah.
I just wanted to elevate ourselves. But I'm like, I spent, instead of just going to the theaters and watching Companion with my whatever pennies I would have contributed, I paid a solid $20 to own Companion for the rest of my life. And whatever distribution that comes out to. But yeah, I mean, like, I don't know what the solution is. I just know there's a conversation that needs to be had about it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's tricky because I feel like the interesting thing in what we get to do is that I have found, especially in the most recent iteration, like a tremendous bridging of the gap between watching something at home and watching something at the theater, because of our unique position in that, I mean, we're kind of in some sort of theater-esque chair, and we're, like physically you're a profile next to somebody, but just having the camera on, it kind of feels like there are a bunch of people in the room. And in a way, I think that's really cool because you can transcribe that to your home. But I do love, I am one of those people who does love the movie theater experience and does kind of agree when people say, it's a big benefit for us, obviously, to have the shorter theatrical window released to VOD, then we can cover the movie. But part of me is like, I feel like more people probably would go to the theater if it was like a 3-month wait or something like that. Like growing up in the time, especially when it was back in the VHS days where you would forget about a movie's existence and it feels like 4 years would go by and then finally it's on video. Like that did create this greater sense of like, well, if I want to see this and be part of the conversation or just get the experience of something I'm excited about, I got to do it now, or I got to make the time to go do it. And there's a certain feeling that like, oh yeah, everything will be available pretty quick. And I think that does, that does cut down on your incentive to really frequent the theater. And there's the further, I think the question you're always going to have trouble dealing with is just like, what's the theater experience like? And some people have consistently pretty good theater experiences. Some people mostly associate the theater with being a place that's, loud or whatever, unruly, or not exactly ideal to their particular viewing conditions. So it's like, I don't know. I feel like the movie industry in and of itself, the exhibition industry, is in a weird place because subscription model I think is good, is certainly like, it gets people encouraged to go to the movies, which is good. I don't know what the cut is versus buying just a normal ticket. But it is, I don't know, the commodification does feel real when you do have something like an Electric State that is exorbitantly expensive coming out on your Netflix. And it's like, I get especially that Netflix and them want the home thing to be a destination too. But I do feel strange kind of looking at an Electric State and being like, I feel like this is something that you should want to be like broadcast real big, and it's foolish to assume that most average people have a massive television or something even today. So it's a strange time, I feel like, for business and movies, and I think there is a point in that, like, yeah, people most flock to these big spectacle pieces and stuff like Marvel. Even when Marvel is sort of flailing or you know, yo-yoing in quality, there's its own narrative of like, are they going to nail it this time? You know, whereas like I feel like the genuine curiosity of just like, what is this thing? I'll go check it out, because the theater as part of our cultural ritual is like a diminished thing now, and it makes me kind of sad.
Well, the conversation of like, how do you achieve immersiveness, right?
Yeah.
And as we do things so much on autopilot, most things of how we operate in life is autopilot. And a lot of people, I'm sure, when they're watching Electric Slate, are not watching it in an environment where they can be immersed into it. I'm not saying there aren't people who do. I'm saying there's more than likely most are not really in a controlled environment where the lights are off and the sound is booming and you're able to just be lost in this one movie for a while, right? And then that devalues conditions your autopilot ways of ensuring that, like, hey, you know, like, I don't need to watch movies immersed anymore. I don't need to have an immersive experience.
I gotta have two-screen experience.
And then now you take that to the movie theaters where you're like, no, I don't need that now. I don't need to feel it because I'm still able to watch a movie without having an immersive experience. It's like, it's real. I think a lot of people don't realize, like, you do kind of train yourself in a way to get used to watching stuff without immersion. When movie theaters, they're all about immersion. And this is the reality. Like, I don't think we're going to change that. Like, we can't change that. Where I think studios need to do, and it dawned on me while we were talking, a lot of the times you'll be like, what I'll hear is something I heard with Deadpool and Wolverine is like, no, why would I buy it? It'll be for free on Disney Plus in a few months. And no one questions that. No one questions that it's not for free on Disney Plus. For some reason, because we work on autopilot, we say it's for free, but it's like, no, it's not. You're paying for Disney Plus.
You're paying for the access to the service.
Exactly. You're paying monthly for this.
We don't even have no ownership over the content.
But we don't acknowledge really that we, for some reason, go, it'll be for free on Netflix. No, it's not.
No.
Like,
there's no
you
such
are
thing as a
paying
free
for
movie.
it. You are putting money towards it. And hence that's why we get all the other shit of, like, when the strikes were happening and why people should be financially gaining from it, because this is the world and there's all these different societal conditionings. I think movies have to work. This is why IPs are like, we need toys, because you need multiple streams of revenue. And there's got to be a new version here in the industry where they don't just rely, like, if they're placing all their bets on, like, we need to freaking make the money in the theaters or all sort of strength. That's just the reality is like, that's not the case anymore. And there has to be some type of true negotiation and discussion with, like, I don't really know how it is post strikes. Like, if it's really that much better. It doesn't sound like it is. I don't think it is.
There's still so much kind of changing and colliding in the industry.
But like, for us at Real Rejects, it's like we have three primary sources of income. There's other ways we get income, but there's three primary. It's like we have AdSense, we have Patreon, and then we have brand deals. Those are the three ways. If we only had one, we'd be kind of screwed. Like, we need the three. And I think that's the same thing here they do need a proper slice of the pie, or there's got to be a way to elevate VOD or make VOD different where you do feel like you're getting more accessories to owning it. Like, when you buy a Blu-ray, you get a bunch of shit that you're probably never going to touch. You're not going to look at the special features. You probably won't do it. I know there's people who do. I'm saying there's a lot of people who don't.
Shouts out to the homies who make that shit.
But we like options as people. That's why we buy Netflix and never watch anything, because we like options. That's why we have 100 streaming services we never watch shit on, because we like options. And I think if VOD simply made it seem like you're gonna get shit that you don't put on for that you won't get when it's for free on Disney Plus, you might buy it. And they do sometimes. They add a little something extra, but I think they got to do something a little bit more incentivizing that does allow them to make more money off of that instead of just it has to make money in the theaters. It must.
Yeah, something that actually makes you think. I feel like people most directly jump to it's in the theaters, and then eventually it'll show up on a streaming service that I can access with my membership. And like people know that VOD is a thing, but I feel like there's probably a greater barrier of like some people really don't do that a lot or don't know how to interface with it. And like sometimes it's unclear. Like I and maybe it's just because I haven't used the Apple interface as much, but like with Apple TV, it's like, oh, I bought Nosferatu when we did the video. And it's like, oh, it comes with the extended edition. And someone was like, which version did you watch? And I was like, well, I think it was the theatrical cut, but let me see how I can even find and access the extended edition. And it was like kind of tricky. And I had to like figure that out. And I feel like if there's a way to kind of remove some of those barriers and to really make it like an apparent event of some kind, like, oh yeah, if you get in on the VOD, there's something special here, and that release can also be an event rather than just like, oh, it'll be available on this date, and if you happen to read movie trades or whatever, then you'll know. It's like how we, again, coming from the days where every Friday movies would come out at the Best Buy or whatever on Blu-ray or DVD. There was a greater, before all the archives existed that we could access, there was a greater sense of like, well, if you like that, go grab a copy to build my library. And like I think having streaming now forces you to be a little more selective about what your library is and maybe a little more intentional with amassing things you care to revisit or care to have supported in some way. And I'm like, how can you... There's something about again, it's going to be that physical media thing where there's something about the actual experience of holding, opening, putting like there's just a different investment than just a bunch of digital files or something like that. And there's a lot of stuff out there that's just a bunch of digital files.
Yeah,
and it's
for
like,
sure.
And there's art. I don't know. I also, I used to be a big CD, person, and it's like there's the art in the book and there's the whole experience of that stuff. And so, like, I wish there was a way to add maybe some of that craft and artifice even to the digital space of things.
Sure,
but I don't know really what that would be. And it's like, what we get to do watching at home does feel like some kind of an event and some kind of, shared communal experience. But I think there's also that too, is like we live in a time where it's funny. I feel like people are maybe more starved for and in need of communal experiences, and yet are driven way more toward isolated experiences because they're so accessible and they're so on your terms.
Yeah.
And I feel like there is something about when you go to the theater or something like that, or even when something comes out on a physical format with a bunch of extra behind the scenes stuff, it feels like you're glimpsing a show of some kind, or at least that's what I imagine. Like the specialness, because we live in a time now where like people are accustomed to the idea that movies exist, and there's less of major ground broken on less consistent bases and all that stuff. But like I feel something like an Electric State should feel like the sort of event where you're like, damn, the people, arguably, hopefully, some of the elite talents of these crafts got together and put this thing together, and we should all go out to this place to see it, put on display, before we do a 2-screen experience at home with it, And then you wonder, to cap this off, I guess, you hear about Apple TV, like, I don't know if any of this is true, but they're like, oh, it loses like $1 billion a year, and Electric State is one of the most expensive movies of all time. And then you're like, and they can't pay the writers and or various other departments who don't get the amount of visibility that writers or directors or actors do. And it all points to this weird, again, growing pain of like, how do you hold on to, and not to be overly pretentious, but like the value in the crafting of art in a time where everything's just a little file on your desktop, and sometimes it's just in a cloud and they can take it away whenever they want and it might never exist. It reminds me of what we were talking about moments ago in the Looney Tunes stuff, is like you could live in a situation where like some of that stuff just disappears and it's gone. And now the history is just forgotten potentially. And like, you know, so many physical movies were lost before the 50s. Like, so much of what was made, it doesn't exist anymore. And like, that's totally possible in a digital era, just in a different way. Like, it's ironic that in a time we have such ability to preserve and to lavish these, you know, crazy exhibitions, it's also like the most pedestrian a lot of this stuff is felt, because it is just kind of files in a cloud, and that's abstract, and it doesn't really mean much to any. Like, we don't really know how these things actually work. We just use them. And whereas like putting a disc in a machine or something is different, or running a reel through a projector is like, you can feel that even if you're not operating it.
Okay. But yeah, guys, I know we're kind of like, I expected this today. John and I are both, I'm especially tired today. I'm more tired. Like, I feel like I'm more tired every week. Like, it's like, it's a problem.
Next podcast, you can take
I am super fatigued lately, and I'm just like, it is not stopping. And it's only about to get better, because we're going to talk about stuff. Jesus.
Oh, yeah. What do we got?
Well,
We'll do Type 5.
no, there isn't possible. Content Corsair says definitely Snow White. The movie seems to give every group a reason to hate it, left and right, critics and audiences. I mean, there's like a billion different. I'm sure you got like a bunch of people who are saying a lot of the same things, whether it's the hate side, whether it's the way people don't like the hate side, and just in an attempt to do something different. I'll just talk about my personal feelings, which I'm sure will echo one of those camps in some way. I did a short review of Snow White. Did you see it?
I did.
Here, you know what we'll do? Let's play it.
Hey.
Let's play it, and then I'll go into why my personal feelings are here. And then also that way the editors can play it. And then they know. So I'm just going to play it out loud into the microphone a little bit. But put it on screen, editors, between John and I. There's this giant space here. Just let it play.
I just got out of watching the, for some reason, highly controversial Snow White adaptation, and I'm of two minds about it. On one hand, I think from like a child's perspective, considering the reactions I could hear from kids in the screening, probably delivers on being an entertaining film. There were giggles, there were gasps, and a few moments where the younger audience members seemed genuinely invested. If that's all that matters to you, if you're just looking for something to throw on for a kid who enjoys bright colors, songs, and fantasy, then honestly, you can click off right now, because from the perspective of a dude in his 30s who has actually liked or even loved some of these live-action Disney adaptations, this one, it isn't great. Put it more on par with the quality of like a Disney Channel original movie. And look, I love The Descendants and the High School Musical movies. I just saw those like a year ago. But even within the Disney Channel category, I'd still say this Snow White would be near the lower end. This movie isn't without its moments, despite what the internet has to say about her. Rachel Zegler does inject some heart into the role. Easily the best part of the film. There are a couple of musical numbers that are genuinely enjoyable, and I do appreciate that the movie tries to expand upon the original instead of just, you know, being a shot-for-shot remake. However, that attempt at reinvention leads to the film running into conflicting terrain. It takes itself way too seriously at times while simultaneously trying to carve out its own identity, yet it still feels bogged down by the need to hit like requisite beats from the OG. It's a movie that doesn't flow well. It's clunky, tonally inconsistent, it's annoying at times, and it's visually uninspired. Speaking of visuals, none of it feels real. It just looks fake. Story-wise, the movie needed strong execution of world building, especially with the changes they attempted, but everything feels half-cooked and or hollow. Felt like it was like lacking in budget or something. The dwarves, a lot of people started laughing when they showed up because they just don't look good. They don't look good. I won't go as far as to say they were like unbearable portrayals or something. Dopey in particular had some genuinely enjoyable moments. I kind of felt like they didn't originally want them in this movie. Then there's Gal Gadot. Listen, she's trying. She really is, but I wouldn't be surprised if come award season she gets a Razzie nomination thrown her way. That being said, I still, I had fun watching her, just maybe not for the reasons the movie intended. Ultimately, Snow White, it isn't the disaster the internet was hyping it up to be, but it's not good either. It's clunky, it's uninspired adaptation that has a few redeeming qualities, but it fails to justify its own existence. I wouldn't rush to the theaters for this one. I'd say maybe wait for Disney Plus. Maybe.
I play all that because then I would still see some comments come in. Now there's three types of comments. All right, to be fair. One version of comments is like, I appreciate the honest review. I appreciate you taking the time to be actually be fair with it.
Love to see it.
And I'm like, that was my intention. Like I'm weirdly kind of proud of that video because, and the reason why is like it's short form. It was just done for like the shorts and the social media, so it's not a full review. Now that like shorts and Instagram reels have expanded to be 3 minutes instead of a minute and a half, I wanted to take advantage of that opportunity to give something that could provide a little bit more fairness and nuance versus, you know, what another side wants to hear. You know, the just say it's a bunch of DEI woke virtue signaling Disney remake bullshit, right? Yeah. And we'll just talk about that for a second because I don't think anyone who can listen would be like, this guy liked the movie. Right. And it's interesting to see there's still a good amount of people who were, like I said, there's variations, not everyone, there's still a good amount who are still coming at me going like, God, you're so woke. And the one that like was just the stupidest one to me was, and someone pointed out in our community post, was that it's clearly a paid review. He would just make it sound like it's not as terrible as it is. And I was like, the dumbest logic I could have ever heard from this is you think Disney would pay someone not to say it's good, but just make it not sound as terrible as it is.
Make your F a C, not an A. It's the plausible lie.
Yeah. It's so it is beyond dumb to me. And then, you know, like, and a lot of that is like, just say it's a piece of shit. What's with all the other stuff? And I'm like, wow.
Somebody else said it. Just say what the truth is because they said it and it's the truth.
Yeah. And
look, it matches what I want to hear.
I have not refreshed my brain on the stuff Rachel Zegler has said. I have not done the research on what Gal Gadot has said because I see whatever they have said and done, you know, obviously popping up and that's a big contribution. Rachel Zegler in particular is a massive, I mean, but Gal Gadot seems to be getting it a lot on the equal end for her political point of views or whatever of why people have written this movie off beforehand for that. And it's really easy to just, I think for people who are angry with them, I do wonder if they like actually sit alone when like think about this. Do they actually simmer at like another alone time? But and I'm sure there are some people who have taken it really personal to heart, especially when it comes to more of the sensitive, real life, political, controversial things. Absolutely. Yeah. But if a lot of these people are also part of the same camp who are like, keep politics out of my movies, keep politics out of my films, right? Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, that's what I wanted to do. That's why I was pointing out, you know, like, I know there's stuff said. I'm not going to base it on any of that.
That stuff aside, here's how the movie was.
Let's just look at what the movie is itself. There's none of this other stuff in here that I'm not going to, I personally just, again, like I said, I didn't refresh myself on what Rachel Zegler has said. I didn't dive into what Gal Gadot said. I was just coming from my own personal experience. And it's wild to me how rage bait over a film, like, because there are those channels who do when you see like people, like dudes in their like 40s and stuff, rage, I'm like, I don't think Snow White was your jam growing up.
You care that much
I don't
about
think
Snow White?
You put much thought into Snow White until you saw an opportunity to rail on Rachel Zegler, who had some opinions that perhaps were not, from a PR standpoint, maybe not the smartest of opinions. I don't even want to say smartest, like.
Phrased in a way
it's
that
stupid to say. Sorry, really quick. I know I'm just talking nonstop. It's stupid for me to say smartest because I don't even really remember what she said, so I don't want to say that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think some of her comments are particularly well articulated to set off a certain group of people. The main one that stands out to me is like, oh, it's not about, you know, like, oh, the prince is kind of creepy in the original movie, and it's not about her trying to find true love or whatever. She wants to step into her power and become the leader she knows she can be, or whatever. You know, it's more of an empowerment tale than it is a damsel in distress tale, and right away, people are going to be upset about that. And yeah, I mean, like in a time and place where like we're in this weird you know, Ouroboros of like the whole conversation is sort of laborious, and like, again, if the movie's doing it right, no one's going to really notice that heavily anyway. So like it's a real odd thingamajig, and it is funny that people are so often like separate the art from the artist, and yet, you know, we'll find really pedantic reasons not to do that.
Until it's their problem. Until suddenly they got a problem with the artist.
Yeah. And so many of these controversies, I feel like, not all of them, some of them are eventually revealed to be merited, but with a movie like this, most movies that have some kind of controversy like this, like once you see the actual movie, you're like, it's not really either of these things. And if I know anything, I haven't seen the new Snow White yet, but if I know anything about how these go, like, yeah, there may be some ham-fisted attempts at catering to the more modern sensibility of inclusion, but at the same time, I know well enough not to assume that it's going to be any radical manifesto on that stuff, and it's mostly going to be kind of at like a kid / internet appeasing level.
Yeah.
And yeah, like it's another one of those controversies that's just exhausting to deal with, especially on the Rachel Zegler side. Like I feel like there are different reasons people are frustrated by Gal Gadot's involvement, unless it's like the whole Snow Brown thing, in which, like, you know, that's silly and ridiculous. But, you know, there are reasons to have issue with her involvement in a different way than there are just like, oh, Rachel Zegler said these comments. And I think there's also it's just such an odd one for them, because there's also, I have heard this sort of apparent retooling of the dwarves themselves, and the whole idea of like, should there be 7 dwarves? What does this say about that stereotype? And it sounds like a movie that finds itself woefully in a middle ground of not muchness, because it's like you have the solution, which is odd looking CGI dwarves, and then like these 7 other like bandit characters who, from what I've heard, are like there for an interlude and maybe potentially were the original 7 dwarves they were going to be. And like, I feel like all these controversies kind of suck because they kind of keep things from just being real movies, and instead you get like a Frankenstein of like, we got to kind of try and please everybody.
Yeah.
You know, even though we're fighting an uphill battle, because I don't know, like it's so hard to talk about because it's so multi-layered with bullshit stuff. You know, it's like, yeah, comments from the lead actress about the essence of the thing and her maybe being a little backhanded towards the original material. Like, I get why you would be a little off-put by that or something. But, you know, like people were, the press tour leading up to Wicked was like kooky and kind of strange. But when the movie came out, like that didn't overshadow it, you know? So sometimes it also just depends on how good the movie is. And I think that's ultimately the curse, is that then people go, just say it's terrible because I hate it already just for existing as it does. And then the other people going, you know, you're so negative, you know, you don't know how to have fun. And like, it sounds like it's just kind of like a okay-ish missed opportunity to do something great.
I think this side of it that was like upsetting to me was like, there's either way, I actually didn't put much thought into it. I'm like, I wanted to like it. I genuinely did. I went in hoping that like, oh, it would be really cool if this movie ended up being great. Like,
Yeah.
Can you imagine how cool that would be? It would be a great film. And I really didn't like it. And it's the weird part was to be told, again, it's just, it is a fraction, a loud fraction, but it is just a fraction. You didn't hate it enough. You didn't dislike it to the degree enough because of your values as a person or some shit.
Few things are that bad.
And I think I don't feel like I was sugarcoating, and this is really not about me defending myself. This is more about the larger picture of,
It's like the need for controversy.
yeah, the need for controversy, this ugly side, this vitriol,
This hunger
where-
for controversy.
where you really don't want something to succeed. You really don't want, you get off on it failing.
You
get
wanna
off
yuck
on
the
it,
yum,
you know?
yeah.
And I hate seeing it applied with something I treasure so much, which is movies. And
Yeah.
there's so many people work on these things. You know, some people just want you to be like incredibly blunt, and the older I get, the more in tune I get with that, of how there's like a ton of, at that same theater I saw it at, there was this guy who came up to me, not that day, but a different time. The time I saw Nosferatu, this dude who did, he's worked on a couple of Disney movies, big ones, and a Pixar movie. And he does storyboarding. And he watched one of our reactions, I think it was Wild, it wasn't Wild Robot. Oh God, I forget which one. It was Inside Out 2, one of the Disney ones. And he's like, what you said about, I said something apparently about artists and storyboard people. And he's like, and no one really points that out. And it meant so much to hear that from you and everything. And I'm like, and that's kind of what I mean, is like, he is one person out of like, 1,000 people who are working to create this one thing.
Yeah.
And just because of a couple of people, you really want this thing to completely fail. And even if it's not being received well or being disliked, you're not being ugly enough about it. And I'm like, wow, there's this really sad side. Like I think that's what I'm getting at. Like I'm unpacking it in real time. I haven't talked about it. It just kind of makes me sad because I'm at this weird part in life where like sometimes someone says something and it gets under my skin and I get really mad about it. But more often than not now, I'm just like, wow, what kind of individual are you? Like how sad are you? Like how hurt must you be to be like this ugly towards another person?
Yeah.
Especially someone you don't know or like someone over an opinion about a movie, especially, or an opinion about that. If you're or to find me on social media and send me a DM after seeing my YouTube video,
pick a fight
like,
over it.
Like who are you and why are you so sad? Like you know,
why isn't there an alternative thing you can go focus on that does suit your wants and needs rather than having to put your energy into your anger about this thing?
Yeah, and it's like, how come we're at this point too? And maybe it's because it was the platform I posted it on. Why are we at this point too where people like the same people who say like we want nuance in our stuff, but when it comes to like the journalism side, they want the soundbite. They just want you to just get it over with. They want you to just be like completely 100% just one way or another without any nuance to it.
People are not as open to discovery.
No, it's not. And that's the big part of the cinematic experience. And I do find that what's happening with this Snow White movie, as someone who doesn't like it, I hate the experience around it. Yeah. I'm not even like, I haven't really seen much crap. That's what I mean. It's like I feel different about this. I'm not like mad at anyone who's said something to me. I'm not mad that anyone. I'm not even mad at anyone who was like, "Of course you hate it. You did it for views." I didn't see much of that, but I'm not even mad about that. It's like why is this? Why are we here with films? Like why? I'm more curious about that. Like why? How did we evolve to this point with movies and shows? This is a Disney movie.
Yeah.
Like what has happened right now?
This is a remake of a beloved animated classic. You know, this is something most people saw as children.
Yeah.
Or when it was like fresh and new. And yeah, I don't know, like much ado over something that should be kind of innocuous at least, you know. It's odd. Especially, yeah, for it's particularly bald-faced in situations like this when you have, again, like you said, a certain contingency of people who just don't seem like the target market for Snow White, who suddenly have very invested opinions or on The Little Mermaid or whatever it is. And hey, you know, I understand the want for things to honor whatever source material, but I don't know, like... It's weird. I can't fully say, like, just don't care if you really do care and they change it and you don't love that. You're entitled to that. That's fine. You know, but at the same time, I feel like we should embrace at least the idea that, like, again, it doesn't help in the present that the original one's still there because, you know, maybe you want a new one and maybe you're not going to get the new one that you wanted. But the original one is still there. Yeah. And with these stories, I have to feel for as enduring as they are, someone will do it again.
Someone will, man. So, I don't know. I'm just, it's weird. I'm not drained. I'm not any of that. I'm just like, it's just, this is the new norm is what I'm saying. Like this is a normal thing now.
It's a byproduct of the fact that I think partly that the barrier between, you know, them and us, the studios and the people who make this is so thin. And now the entertainment industry has like this middle ground that encapsulates us, you know, that's like people online, but who are professionally kind of putting out their POV and either stoking these fires or having conversation about art.
Movies and shows were supposed to be a communal experience. It's supposed to be a unifying experience.
Yeah. And you can have disagreements, but...
And now there's so much ugliness from people who haven't even seen these things.
Yeah.
They haven't even seen these movies. And that's the shocking part to me is like, wow, people hate when you make up an opinion before you've seen something. People hate it. The same people raging hate that.
Yeah.
The people who are mad at me for not being hateful enough, you haven't seen this movie.
You probably
Like,
don't want to
yeah.
or set on rage watching it instead.
Yeah, you're gonna watch like a bunch of other people who echo that. The same people who bitch about hating someone's echo chamber. I'm like, you're also probably in an echo chamber yourself.
Yeah, we shout at each other from mutual echo chambers.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I'm kind of in a sad mood, but
It's
you know,
just it's a sad thing to behold. There should never be this much vitriol and upset, unless again someone who's like known. Unless you have somebody in your movie who's like a known criminal abuser person, and we're just letting that happen. Like, barring that, like, yeah, if it's just like, oh, I don't like this version of Snow White, like, that's a bummer at most. You know, like, it shouldn't be a missile in a culture war.
No. Well, that's that. Snow White. Andrew Nickerson, 2855.
Andrew
Nickerson, man, been a long time.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
I don't know what that was, but that was a fist bump for you.
He says, love when the OGs get together. The rumor is,
Let's go.
this is a big one I saw on Twitter. A female villain has been cast for Spider-Man 4. Do you think this is what Sadie Sink is doing? What female villain could be introduced? Could Sadie Sink be playing the Phoenix from another universe as a villain? That would be fucking like, good luck, Spider-Man.
Skip right to Dark Phoenix in Spider-Man.
Yeah, good luck, Spider-Man.
Oh
Take
my
it
God.
on. Take it on the Phoenix.
Your friendly neighborhood red smear across the pavement.
I'll just web the Phoenix together.
I'll just trap her in a big web ball. I'll get my extra special flame retardant spider web going.
Jeez. That is what I've heard. I don't know who she'd be playing. But I did. I'll admit, like, I just went to see what people are theorizing about who would be playing. I'm like, oh, I have no idea who would be. And then like obvious names were popping up. One being Black Cat, Felicia Hardy, skilled cat burglar with incredible agility and bad luck powers.
Hey.
Sometimes an enemy, sometimes a love interest. I think who Felicia Hardy is, Sadie Sink. Yeah, I think Sadie Sink could pull her off. I tend to imagine. No, Sadie Sink could pull her off for sure.
It would be I have confidence she could pull her off, and it would allow her to show us a couple extra elements we haven't quite glimpsed yet, but I imagine her in there.
Silver Sable, highly trained mercenary and leader of the Wild Pack.
Hey.
Hunts dangerous criminals for a price.
Hey.
One theory going around was that like she could be like someone that Kingpin hires or something, like take down Spider-Man.
Oh, and then at the end you get the reveal of like who you work for. Oh, it's Kingpin. Oh my God, part 5 he's gonna verse Kingpin.
Scream from the Venom verse. Not a likelihood.
Fun, but no.
Lady Octopus, brilliant scientist and protege of Dr. Octopus. That would be fun.
That could be fun, and we're far enough out from the first Spider-Verse where that would still be like a fun echo that isn't too multiversally overbearing.
Madam Hydra Viper. Ruthless terrorist and Hydra leader. I don't think it's gonna happen. I'm skipping all that. Spider Queen. Another one has psychic powers and the ability to mutate people into spider creatures.
Fun.
If they were
Man Spider.
I don't actually. Yeah. I think if they were to do who do you think, John? Like if they, first off, how do you feel about there being a female villain if that is true? I think that'd be, personally, there's something kind of refreshing about that.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool. I mean, like, there are so many. It's always interesting because I feel like Spider-Man is at a point now where I would love to see some other villains that aren't just, the big few. And I mean, part of me got kind of I think the most obvious first place to start would be a Felicia Hardy Black Cat thing. And I, in my brain, kind of wondered, because of her dubious status and the sort of femme fatale, sometimes she's with you, sometimes she's against you. Like, there's a really fun personal back and forth you could tell that has potential to be neighborhood level. Sable as an option, I think, is maybe a little more convincing if it is that she were to play like a more major villain. Like, the thing about a Black Cat is I think you would always want to leave it to in some kind of ballpark where today they're at odds and tomorrow they could not be, rather than like, this is my villain. Whereas like a Sable, I feel like you would have more of that potential for just like straight up, especially if you go with like, some kind of involvement to Kingpin to grow it bigger. Not that you have to have a spotlight a male villain behind the female villain, but something, any story that involves a crime family adjacent character seems like a nice place to start for a Spider-Man. I'm like, maybe let's stray from Mad Scientist Gone Awry for a minute. Let's stray from anything too cosmic or too global, because there was one option in there, Madam Hydra, like that. I'm like, cool, but too big. I agree, too big. Like, I feel like I'm not the most qualified person to tell you what character it should be, but I feel like a Black Cat or a Sable is more compelling to me because I feel like those are opportunities where they might not sound as flashy on paper as having some kind of, like, Lady Octopus would be my favorite for the fun of it. But we just did Doc Ock, so I feel like we should wait on that. And so, one of these more city crime adjacent characters, ground level characters who can challenge Peter as a person and as Spider-Man, I think would be a nice play for a villain. And especially, a Sadie Sink character of sorts. It's a bit of so strange because, like, none of the pitches, just your spiritual metal detector pings sometimes. And you go, maybe there's just a frequency where that feels right. And I haven't heard one yet that feels like that's probably it, or that I feel like I would put money on that.
Yeah.
Like, I can't place it even though, like, Sadie Sink in this world seems like a natural fit.
Yeah.
Like, who would you go with? Who would you be most excited by? A man.
I guess I would. I feel like as you were talking, I'm like, I agree with everything you said. I guess I would be more of a I'd be more excited at finally doing Black Cat. I believe they were doing Black Cat for Amazing Spider-Man, and they were setting that up. I believe that's right. Felicity Jones, yes. Yeah. And then they didn't pay that off. So I feel like to finally pay that off would be rewarding, and I think it would be add a little bit. It's gonna sound weird. I think it would add a little bit of sexiness to Spider-Man. Like it hasn't really had. When I was talking with Aaron, we were saying like there hasn't been much a true romantic story.
Yeah.
Not that I associate like a big romantic story with Black Cat, but I'm like, I don't know. There could be like there's a bit of a sexual tension, a bit of a Batman Catwoman thing there, and I think that would be fun to actually bring into the franchise
and good time
and demonstrate a sense of it growing, a sense of maturity.
Yeah.
I'm just more excited at the possibility of there being a female antagonist for Spider-Man. Watch Spider-Man beat the shit out of this one. Yeah.
Beat her to a pulp, Spider-Man. Spider-Man goes way harder than on any other villain. No. But I mean, like, a female antagonist, absolutely. Please. Like, let's do it. Like, why not? And I feel like at this point, after having said goodbye, for now, ostensibly, to MJ and Ned, like, this is the opportunity. Yeah, like, there's a hole in his heart, and someone could step in to fill it. And there's a lot you can do there.
And it feels very street level to do that. So anything that veers towards street level, I'd be more excited if Sadie Sink is playing Black Cat than, like, Jean Grey. Honestly, I would be exceptionally more excited.
It's funny.
I'd be more excited for Sadie Sink playing Jean Grey in the X-Men movie than I would be in the Spider-Man movie.
Spider-Man versus Phoenix just seems like a wow. What an odd. What we're just gonna again. Throw it in sixth gear and step on the gas. Like it just seems like a weird prospect and indicative of like this identity crisis of like, how do we make him neighborhood Spider-Man again?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like there's an odd paradox where you want the content of Spider-Man 4 to come down to a neighborhood level so that we can relish in seeing the neighborhood magnified to that scale, rather than, having, it's like you can generate big stakes in a small location.
Absolutely.
And I feel like Spider-Man 4 should remind us that.
But yeah, who do you think she's playing, guys? Our last one we'll do. Josh Harris, FK9VD. Punisher, do a deep dive on the Punisher. We're just going to do a big deep dive on the Punisher here.
Warzone, underrated.
No, I got some, I make sure to get some stuff here.
John Bernthal, man.
Bernthal been speaking.
That's right.
Bernthal
He's been writing,
been
apparently.
speaking. So the big thing that was coming out was, in case you guys don't know, Daredevil Born Again was going to be a very different show, more courtroom drama. And then they were like 8 episodes into filming, and they were like, we need to start over. And so what we have now is a bit of a hybrid with a lot of new, some of that carries over. And John Bernthal, he first had a lot of hesitation and creative differences. He talked about how he didn't see the version of Frank, and what they wanted from Frank didn't really make sense to him. It was not something he was really interested in doing, so he had to walk away. Left it, didn't want to be involved with it. But after they restructured it, they brought in new writers, new showrunner. He rejoined the conversation, and he was able to be involved in discussions about Frank's psychological and physical state, leading to a portrayal that felt authentic and true to the character's essence.
Beautiful.
And yeah, so in terms of what they want to do for the Punisher in this standalone special, see if there's a real openness and hunger to let Frank be what Frank is, to really go full bore, is how he put it.
Sure.
And yeah, like the new thing will be visceral, psychologically complex, unforgiving, emphasizing all the violence, portrayed will have significant consequences. And it seems like he wants to challenge the audiences, ensuring the character's darkness and complexities are fully realized without compromise. And I'll say, like, in a day and age with Marvel, where when a character returns, it's a fist bump feeling, you know? And that was the initial response when Frank first shows up in that episode, but it is not a fist bump scene.
Wait, Frank showed up?
Yeah.
Was there a Punisher
I don't know if
appearance
you
this
heard.
week? I didn't hear anything about it.
So Frank,
Nobody let me know, least of all Disney Plus.
But that scene was like, wow, this is one of the best MCU Disney Plus scenes. This is just 2 characters having a tragic conversation and it
About
is,
their allotted life. What
Yeah.
irony.
like disturbed, broken men. And I was kind of surprised more in reflecting on it. Like, damn, they really just gave us like a 10-minute scene or something. It felt like 10 minutes of Frank Castle and Matt Murdock that was about as vulnerable as it can get with these two.
Sure.
Where you're like, this is Daredevil and Punisher. They're just sad.
Yeah.
Like, they are sad, but it works. It's not in like it's still rewarding because it's honoring who they are and where they're at this moment in time. It feels authentic to the characters. And it gave me a bit more of a Marvel appreciation in retrospect, especially seeing this John Bernthal shit, because at first it was like, this sounds like it's going to be a disaster, perhaps, with Daredevil Born Again. They have to do all this retooling, but that step in doing that seems to have paid off. We talk so much about, in this random video, about leadership and trust, and for Feige and company involved to have the foresight, to have the leadership initiative, to be like, I know we spent a lot of money already, but we have to do this properly.
Yeah.
And it's testament when you have both Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio who spoke on that as well, and John Bernthal being especially candid about like, yeah, I wasn't going to be involved with what the old thing was because of how they were doing the old thing.
Yeah.
To listen to the creatives, to see what the audiences would want. And I think Marvel should get a lot of credit for that, despite whatever people are feeling about Daredevil Born Again. An actor like Bernthal, who's obviously very much like, he holds his integrity in high regard. Like that's something, his values are very important to him.
Yeah.
And for him to come back based off of that, and to know that he can proceed forward with even magnifying that
Yeah.
in a way that can challenge audiences.
And being involved with how that challenge is levied, you know, having some creative input on this character he's poured a good amount of his soul into. Seems like a rare and lovely opportunity for an actor.
Yeah, and it's really easy to look at bash shit, but behind the scenes and to see what happened, and it's not even like a praise Marvel talk of what John Bernthal's doing right now. It is literally about the creative process and how they went back and they wanted to respect the creative process and be true to their characters at their core in a way that the actors who played them for years would agree with it. And I have nothing but appreciation in this moment in time for what Marvel decided to do with that and how it was able to bring Jon Bernthal back in a way where that scene is great. His return is great. It honored. It wasn't a fist bump moment. And to see and to hear about the future of Punisher, I initially, right here on this very show, was like, it sounds weird having Punisher on Disney Plus. It's a weird thing. It's a weird thing to see, and now I've never had more faith in what they can pull off because of like watching that scene, hearing everything that led to that scene, and perhaps future moments he'll probably have in the show. Yeah, I'm really excited.
Hey, and Nora's on the splash page now. It's a different time on Disney Plus. I'm excited too. It's one of the rare occasions where you hear about reshoots in a heartening way. And granted, you don't know what the old stuff looked like to comment yourself on whether it would have been a better or worse direction. But it does. There's so much with Marvel about reshoots being kind of telltale and like detrimental. And this feels like the rare occasion where you're like, no, it seems like they really did go, wait, hold on. We really got to consider this. And yeah, consider the fact that this is a particularly important opportunity to get this right. And yeah, it takes a lot to, especially as I imagine the brass of such a big, prolific studio, to be like, we're deep in this thing, but the right thing to do is to retool. And I love the narrative, at least of that, of he walked away because he wasn't interested in what they were doing. And when they got new people in, they were more inclusive of his idea, which is always going to be more inspiring to any creative person when your ideas are welcomed and wanted for the shaping of the character. But that's heartening, again, in the fact that, yes, Marvel is often the first poster child for like stuff by committee. And sometimes the committee aspect can be a communal creative act, which is cool. And reading a little bit just before we started this, this taping, he said something as well about the special presentation, whatever, the one-off Punisher, special that they're making. And I didn't realize, he was like, I had to pitch for that. Like, they'd read some of my writing, and granted, I'm sure Jon Bernthal, if anybody wanted to write their own Punisher thing, probably has many feet in the door over some random writer. But he was like, they asked me to come up with something based off some writing that I had, done before. And I, auditioned for this pitch, basically. I pitched my idea for what this is. And like, that's really fun and cool. And like, granted, got to put your money where your mouth is. There's ways in which that could go very awry. But as it stands now, and the way, he walks his walk and talks his talk, I feel like that's a fun creative decision where I'm like, cool, I'm excited to see what you come up with. You seem very invested in who this character is. And while people will always vary on who they think is the most definitive on-screen Punisher, there's no doubt that Jon Bernthal seems very tapped into the man that Frank is, as well as who the Punisher is, and seeing, like, again, there's a lot of, and from what I understand, the new Daredevil season is in some way commenting on the appropriation of the Punisher symbology and mythos and who uses it and why, and whether or not that's actually in line with Frank Castle's actual moral code. Like, there's as much opportunity as there is for pulp and, even eye-rollable machismo with the Punisher. I think there are also some really fun opportunities to discuss traumatic, violent darkness in a way that does seem kind of rare and special to that property. And so, it does it's one of the few times where I'm heartened by these weird behind the scenes retoolings, because I'm like, it seems like they did choose the art rather than having to fix this because the world's weird right now, or, we got to make this amenable to some other project over here. It just seems like, no, we just got to get this right. And I love that. It's a good barometer. Somebody like him saying these things is just a nice barometer, because, again, he's a guy who clearly has the acting chops, but also has a sense. It's like Vincent D'Onofrio. You get the sense that guy, and Charlie Cox, they know and are very invested in these characters. And that's wicked cool. That's like when some random guy comes in and does a run of some, you know, superhero comic that you know, and you're like, oh damn, like, you know, you're not just playing this guy, you're about this, you know.
Yeah.
You're a real one, John Bernthal. No, that stuff was heartening. That was cool. And it made me more excited for the presentation for the special.
Yeah.
And to see more, like I you know, I've seen the scene between them, the confrontation, and like, yeah, like each time he always wins me back. You know, I'm always like, God, he really does slip into this guy. You guys were talking in previous episode about like, you know, the vibe, you know, like as John Bernthal, he seems just kind of like this go with the flowy guy. And then, yeah, as Frank Castle, he always transports me. And even, you know, when the Punisher series has its ups and downs, like I've always been fascinated by his take. As much as I do love Warzone, Ray Stevenson, rest in peace. You know, I'm excited for, I'm happy that we have John Bernthal in the Punisher realm, in the Marvel, you know, creative coterie.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm fully with you, man.
I like it.
What do you guys think about Bernthal's comments? Leave your thoughts down below. I know we did this in the exact order people wouldn't want.
It's okay.
We put all the Marvel stuff at the end.
It's for retention, baby. You got to get to the morsels. We own your attention.
We're not going to retain shit.
Yeah, you could just hop to the chapter. You're good.
Thank you guys for being here.
Yeah, this is fun. Thank you for having me.
Hey,
Here,
John,
not over
you
there,
killed it,
but
man.
here.
You killed it. You killed it today, John. Absolutely killed it. And you still set everything up.
I did. I stood in for both of us.
Badass. Badass, dude.
I do my best. It's fun.
And thanks, Michael, for lending us this space again.
Shouts out to Michael.
We'll see you guys soon.